I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.
Your new empire?
Don't make me kill you.
Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you! I loved you! I loved you! I loved you!
The Star Wars Prequel trilogy. I didn't like it as a kid and I hate it even more nowadays. From its terrible dialogue to awful characters. In this video I've decided to rewatch both the prequels and the original trilogy for a comparison on a trilogy done right. And why the prequels are still and always will be bad movies. Let's start with the basics. George Lucas thinks Star Wars is for kids. Now, I watched the original trilogy at an extremely young age. However, these films make the plot so needlessly complicated for no reason. I thought these films were made for dumb little kids. I thought they were made for little dumb stupid children. What's up with all the politics, George? A good example of a story that I still don't get is The Phantom Menace. What is that film about? Some blockade runners and trading. All I remember in this film is that Padme is secretly the queen and a fight, and that Anakin is a slave. Oh my god, in this one scene you could literally see Jar Jar step on the script by accident. Attack of the Clones is weird also. I can't remember why anyone wanted Padme to be killed in the first place. Maybe it's because I fell asleep to that shitty ass movie. Villains not good. Villains not good. The villains in these films are bad. I remember once in my recommended on YouTube that someone was talking about how each villain in the prequels is like Darth Vader, the cyborg, and being turned to the dark side. However, what the fuck does Darth Maul have to do with anything? He's got a red lightsaber and wears a lot of black. That's it. He also has orange eyes. George Lucas shoves in villain and villain in each of these films, kind of makes me care less and less for each one. As one by one they get pushed aside. How about we have one big bad villain that has genuine motives, is threatening. We have to learn more about him over the next few films. Like, who was that? Darth Vader. In A New Hope, Darth Vader is just some weird black dude. Oh wait, Vader's just some weird dude who likes dressing up in black and killing old men in robes. That's it. But in the later films, we get to learn more about the character and somewhat sympathize with him. Count Dooku is just some guy who likes holding Ewan McGregor captive and getting his hands cut off. That's it. I don't know anything about him other than he used to be a Jedi. And I'm not reading any fucking comic books about what he used to do, mainly because I can't read. General Grievous has 4 lightsabers. That's all I ever know about. And he was only used because George didn't know what to do with Obi-Wan and they wanted to sell some toys. If we had Darth Maul as the big bad guy who actually did stuff, then maybe he would have been a cool character. But no. Bad character, bad movies. None of the characters in the films are good. Anakin Skywalker is some teeny, whiny teenager that is horny for Natalie Portman and doesn't mind killing women and children. With how they speak of Anakin in the original trilogy, I can't get that image in my head of this type of guy. Padme is just as bad also. I can't for the life of me tell you what this character has for a personality. I don't actually fancy Anakin. If I was this bitch and I heard this guy talking about how he was murdered some children, I'd get to Gigantor and get this guy arrested or something. I definitely don't want to start giving him fuck me eyes after he's talking about how he could be so powerful he could stop people from dying. Mace Windu. This character is black. This guy is a character. All he is stern and boring. That's it. There's nothing left to him. The fact that I can go on about how some of these characters are beyond appalling is ridiculous. How am I supposed to relate to Anakin? Wasn't this entire trilogy about his rise and fall? What's this all about then? Weird dialogue. The dialogue in these films has always felt weird to me. And that's not just a case of the prequel. The cast in the original trilogy knew how bad George's dialogue was. And you know what they did? They changed it. Thanks to these guys, it feels more natural. However, no one really complained about the dialogue in these films. So what we got are some really terrible lines.
I think. You're a funny little boy. How do you know?
If you got some other people to look at your scripts, George, then maybe it wouldn't feel so stiff and off-putting. Because no one says this shit.
All I want is your love.
Love won't save you, Padme. Only my new powers can do that.
What a terrible line. I don't know if that was how Hayden says it, but he sounds like a 5-year-old showing off his Lego set to his little girlfriend. Funny acting, except it's not made to be funny. Now let me get this straight. There are some great actors in these films, but they're wasted on George Lucas because he doesn't know what to do with these. Hayden Christensen is a fine actor. He's pretty alright, but George really fucked him in his little asshole in these films. I can't take any of this shit seriously because George isn't telling him what you should feel. Same goes for Natalie Portman, because she's a woman. Look back at the scene where Anakin is talking about how he had a heart for killing children. Don't you think she should be horrified? Scared, not sure what to do? No, she looks completely brain dead. And Mossy keeps on whining. Not even if there's anything going on in her head. George Lucas doesn't understand the 3-act structure. I completely forgot about it. A good example of this is in The Phantom Menace. We start off with our heroes landing on a spaceship for some negotiation, and then land on Naboo. First act should settle our characters down to the soon-to-come action. During this part, we should get to know our characters. During this part, we should get to know what our characters are like, get familiar with them. If Anakin is such a vital part to this trilogy, why does he first appear in the second act? Luke didn't have that. Our main villain, Darth Maul, doesn't even show up until our second act or so. This is ridiculous. Same goes for Attack of the Clone. Dooku isn't revealed up until later into the film. He's just name dropped and put into the title crawl. The first act should engage us in our film and tell us who is good and who is bad. Another example is the Phantom Menace's third act. The amount of shit that's going on during this fight is ridiculous. You got the Darth Maul fight, the Gungan fight, the Anakin fight, and the Padme fight. Whilst watching the film, I completely forgot some of these parts were even going on because there's so much stuff. Lightsabers good in old movies, not in new movies. Now let's get on to one of the biggest things about Star Wars in general. The lightsabers. The lightsaber is one of science fiction's best weapons. It's a laser sword that can cut through things without any trouble. During the original trilogy, the lightsaber was used sparingly to show its importance. The more we have of it, the less impressive it is to the viewer. It's like sweets or drugs. If you have it, it's nice. The more you eat, the more you hate it, and it just gets repetitive. This is a big problem about the prequels. The Jedi's pull out their lightsaber any chance they get to in these films. The first time they use it in these films is even in a magical moment. They just hear some sounds from downstairs and immediately pull out their lightsaber. The fuck is all this about? I don't know who's more paranoid, the Jedi's or the meth heads who live in my park. And stuff like the scene in the arena or General Grievous really don't help making the lightsaber feel less significant. Another thing I want to mention are the fight scenes in these films. Now you might be thinking, these fight scenes are so cool looking. The Disney films don't know how to do it. I'd rather watch those fights than these ones. where they spin a lightsaber a bunch. Do I think it's bad choreography? Not at all. Fights in the originals always felt more raw, which is far better than this flawless choreography which had been practiced for months. Each hit feels more real in the older fights. Any attack could be their last. This builds up suspense and tension. Whilst comparing these fights to the original trilogy fights, I realised that the older fight sequences didn't really use much music, unless it's a more emotional scene. However, in the prequels, they blast this shit at full volume. The music used sparingly in the films was used to emphasise the moment at hand. The lack of any sound other than ambience and the lightsabers clashing always made me feel tense. A good example of this is used in the Luke vs Vader fight in Empire. This shit feels similar to a horror film in my opinion. Luke wandering around the corridors just waiting for Vader to strike at any moment was amazing and used to great effect. Everyone says that the Obi-Wan vs Anakin fight is possibly the best duel, but when I watch it I don't feel anything other than the 7 needles in my back. Not because I know what is already gonna happen, nah, instead it's for how it drags out for 6 fucking minutes and becomes so silly that you think you're watching a Looney Tunes cartoon. How am I supposed to take this seriously when they're doing Pirates of the Caribbean? At one point you'd think a command would pop up on the screen telling me to press X to jump over the massive lava cliff. Bad effects make a bad movie. Effects in these films aren't the greatest. If there's anything I'm glad about episode 1 2 is that it was shot on location, with some parts. We'll talk about the Geonosis part later. However, episode 3 is like an abusive husband to CGI, just constantly milking it. There is no creativity in these effects whatsoever compared to the originals, which used glass paintings to fill in the gaps because they couldn't create large sets, or even puppets because they weren't able to CGI a model in frame. That is far more clever and creative than sitting in your chair the entire time. A great example of this is in the Geonosis segment in episode 2. Why does this all have to be CGI? It's so easy to see how fake this shit looks. Unlike stormtroopers, I can tell that these clone troopers aren't real and in fact CGI. What's the point? You have a big budget, use it. Why don't you actually make armor? What's the point in doing CGI instead? That's such a waste of time on everyone's part. The fact that I've seen General Grievous cosplays that look better than the big budget film is actually really sad. Boring planets. We've been on Coruscant for 3 fucking films and I still don't like it. It should be an interesting planet, but these films make it out to be so boring. It's just Blade Runner. They really had no need for showing us this much of the planet. This place is used for dumb, boring politics sessions, fucking time, Jedi meetings, and one dumb J scene that makes me want to lose brain cells. I don't care about politics, man. Just saw some good shit. Some of the planets I truly stink of Camino, Naboobu, and Utapu. Well, fuck, that's cool. Naboobu is just another planet for more love scene. It's a nice looking place, but that's it. Would it make more sense for this to be Alderaan? You know, the planet Darth Vader watched blow up. It would hold far more weight than some Naboob or whatever this shit. Camino is literally a knockoff from Cloud City. I couldn't care less about the clone. And Utapu, this planet was so forgettable that it was only used for the General Grievous fight and nothing else. Not my Yoda. In The Empire Strikes Back, Luke imagines Yoda some kind of cunning warrior type of Jedi that is very strong. Instead, he gets some short green dude with pointy ears. This is used to subvert our expectations. Brains over brawn. Throughout the film, he challenges Luke to think. I don't think this Yoda does think. Everything that spouts out of his mouth is about how he can't figure out who the bad guy clearly is. So George made up a really fucking stupid idea. This guy doesn't think with his head at all during these films. I never want to see Yoda pull out a lightsaber and start bouncing around the place. That goes against literally anything he stood for. Conclusion. I've never liked these films and never will, mainly for these reasons. George Lucas having full control over everything wasn't a good idea. The reason the original trilogy were good movies was because it was a collaborative project. All the ideas weren't just coming from one guy, instead a whole team of people. Some of the best stuff from the original trilogy probably didn't even come from George, to be honest. Like the first shot in A New Hope. Just by how the camera is positioned and the scale and comparison, we get a sense of how massive the Empire and how small the Rebellion are. I'm pretty certain George didn't think of that. At the end of the day, I'd much rather watch characters that feel far more real to me and people I can relate to, rather than some moody teenager.